Now, next, we'll move on to the main part, which is the assessment of diastasis recti. I hope my slide is visible.
Not yet.
Examination of diastasis recti.
Not yet visible.
Okay. Now,
No.
okay. I'm on which slide now?
Yes. Examination protocol.
Step
I am
one.
able to. Step 1, yes.
Yes. So in step one, we are going to see the patient setup, how the patient, what should be the patient's position, what instructions are necessary to be given to the patient. So patient or a model, you should ask the patient or model to lie in the crook lying position. If you are doing assessment, you are showing assessment on some model or on a patient. The position should be crook lying position, knees bent and feet flat on the floor. Now, the next step is you have to ask the subject or the patient to do active movement. So, instruct the patient to slowly raise her head and shoulders off the floor. Patient reaches hands forward towards the knee until the spine of the scapula clears the table, clears the assessment table. This will ensure that the rectus abdominis muscle is actively contracting, which is actively engaged. Because we are going to assess the rectus abdominis muscle. So positioning the patient in crook lying position, active movements to be done by the patient, and to lift the head and the shoulders of the table by the hands reaching towards the knee. Now we'll see the hand placement, the finger placement, and the sides at which the diastasis is to be assessed. Now I'm moving on to the next slide. Let me know if it's visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Step 2, therapist assessment.
No. Step 2 is not visible. Yes, now it is visible.
Okay, I have changed the slide again. Is it there?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
step
so
2 is
now
visible.
moving on to the step 2, that is therapist assessment. First was about the patient's position, instructions which are need to be given to the patient, and the step 2 is the therapist assessment. So if you see in the picture, the two fingers are used to assess the diastasis recti separation, placing the two fingers of one hand horizontally across the midline of at the abdomen. So now this needs to be assessed at three different locations. One is at the umbilicus, 2 centimeters above the umbilicus, and 2 centimeters below the umbilicus. If one says the diastasis recti is present all over the linea alba, most commonly, the major defect is seen at the umbilicus level, then the above umbilicus level, and very less or appears very less common at below umbilicus level. So these are the three locations where diastasis needs to be assessed. Now we'll move on to the next slide, which will tell about the interpretation. Now is it visible? Diagnostic interpretation.
No, not yet.
All right. Sorry for the glitch.
Yes. No. Just go once again. Forward.
Forward and backward.
Yes, now it is visible.
Diagnostic interpretation. So
Yes.
once the fingers are placed horizontally across the midline of the abdomen, you will see that the fingers will sink into the gap between the two rectus bellies. So between the two rectus muscles, the fingers will sink inside, and if diastasis is present, the taut band will be felt at the side of your fingers, or a visible bulge between the muscle bellies can be appreciated. So either you can feel the difference and your fingers will sink in the gap, or a visible bulge can be seen. As we have already discussed in the definition slide, anything less than 2 centimeter or equal to 2 centimeter is considered as normal, and any separation which is larger than 2 centimeter width is considered as presence of diastasis recti. So you have to always document the number of fingers which are sinking in between the gap, and you have to measure the distance between the measure the distance by measuring your fingers. I hope you are clear. Moving ahead. The next slide will show how exactly the muscle belly is separate and the gap is seen. So is the slide visible now? Interpreting the tactile feedback.
No.
Now?
Can you? Yes, now it is visible.
Okay. So if you see in the image, there are two rectus bellies which is separated at the center. That is this because of the stretching of the linea alba. And when you do the measurement, when you do the assessment, the two fingers will sink between these two muscle bellies, and a taut band-like structure will you will feel at the side of the fingers. And then at the end, you have to measure the distance by measuring your fingers. Moving ahead to different diagnostic criteria or diagnostic methods which can be used to assess the diastasis recti. I have changed my slide.
Diagnostic modalities metrics are visible now.
Yes, so next I'm going to explain is about the diagnostic criteria or diagnostic methods used to assess
Again,
the
can you go
diastasis.
back? The summary
Okay,
slide is visible.
now,
Yes, now it is visible.
yes. So whatever assessment we have seen till now can be done by the therapist, and the same assessment can be taught to the patient to do the self-examination. But other than this, there are various diagnostic methods which, according to one of the article, recent advances have been given different ratings. If you see physical examination, it is low cost, can be done by the therapist, or self-examination can be done. It is highly accessible, highly dynamic, which is performed by the active contraction or active movements by the patient itself. But lower overall accuracy is seen in this particular type of examination because of subjective measurement of the finger width. So it has been given 1-star rating. The next diagnostic criteria is ultrasound imaging, which is moderate costing and readily accessible, uniquely allows for real-time observation of muscle contraction dynamics, and it gives high accuracy. So according to this, it has been given 2-star rating. Next, third imaging is CT and MRI, which is very high cost but and less accessible. It is static imaging only, and the absolute gold standard method. It is considered for measuring the width and depth of the tissue defect. So these are the various criteria or various diagnostic methods which are used, but most commonly at our setup we do is assessing it using a therapist, or self-examination can be taught to the patient. Now coming to the summary slide, coming to the end of this lecture. Is the slide visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So coming to the end, I would like to summarize the whole lecture of today. So diastasis recti is not a tear which is seen in a muscle. It is a separation at it is the separation of the two rectus abdominis muscle because of the thinning of the linea alba, which is a connective tissue. So which loosens and it's drift about the rectus abdominis muscle. For the assessment, precision requires crook-lying position of the patient, lifting the scapula off the bed, and palpating horizontally at the midline at three distinct points along the midline. That is at the umbilicus level, 2 centimeters above the umbilicus and 2 centimeters below the umbilicus level. Third, if the core muscle weakens, if the rectus abdominis muscle weakens, it destabilizes the body's pressurized cylinder, which directly causes back pain or pelvic floor dysfunctions like urinary incontinence. These are the references. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Indeed, a very informative lecture. For our viewers, could you please explain why it is important for a physiotherapist to assess diastasis recti properly?
Yes, to thank you for the question, Rasika. Diastasis recti needs to be assessed as we have seen the clinical significance. Why it is mandatory or useful to help is it can lead to activity limitation. If diastasis recti is present and the muscles are weak, it can lead to activity limitation, such as the person may have difficulty in transfer, such as supine to sit. The person may also have difficulty in doing different activities because of the presence of back pain, which we have seen because the core gets destabilized and it affects the back, it affects the pelvic floor. So it is necessary to assess the diastasis and treat it at the right period of time.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Again, how does diastasis recti affect core stability, posture, and overall functioning of patient?
Okay. Uh, because it is, if you see the pressurized cylinder, the diastasis is present at the anterior aspect of the body, and from the back there is the lumbar region, thoracolumbar fascia, and from down the pelvic floor and above the uh, breathing muscle, the diaphragm. When this muscle gets weakened from the anterior, it puts the overall pressure on the back, the pelvic floor muscles, and which can also alter the posture because of the weakness, because all the slack of the core muscles is now put up on the back muscle. So it can alter the posture, and ultimately it can lead to activity limitation or reduction in functioning because of pain, because of weakness, which can hamper the activities.
At the end, I would like to ask you, ma'am, what advice would you give to postpartum women to prevent the worsening of diastasis recti?
All right, thank you. That's a good question. For postpartum females, particularly, first of all, we as physiotherapists needs to make sure the females are in touch. We whenever we go and teach antenatal uh, exercises to the antenatal females, we should be in touch in explaining them about the importance and educating them about the diastasis recti. And in postpartum females, particularly, they should be following the exercise guidelines, whichever has been told by the physiotherapist. Along with that, whatever activity modifications has been told to prevent the back pain or pelvic floor dysfunction if seen in that females needs to be tackled properly by following all the advice, ergonomic advice and modifications told to the patient.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for joining with us and giving us such an informative and insightful session. It was pleasure having you on Physio TV. Thank you.
Thank you so much.